Hey everyone, Thyworm here with another dead game. This time you can't even buy it on Steam anymore. But it is not all gloom and doom, so let's figure out what happened here and more importantly, what the future brings. If you enjoy dead games, consider subscribing. I'm making a lot of videos about dead games recently, so you know, it's a very niche market that just stepped into, I guess. Great for the YouTube algorithm. As per usual, we're starting with a little history lesson, or in this case, quite a long history lesson. Oh, and the game that died, if you didn't see the thumbnail or the title, it is Sanctum Breach. You never heard about it? Yeah, it wasn't a hugely popular title. It was as niche as the dead games category on YouTube pretty much. But it had a certain charm and ambition. I covered it back when it entered early access in December 2019. The story starts with Sam Keats, a developer with a dream, an ARPG dream. He decided to create an ARPG, but not just any ARPG, no, he wanted to recreate Diablo 2, sort of. He envisioned a hardcore ARPG with old school graphics, a full campaign, boss encounters, arena mode, 3 classes with 3 masteries, 7 item rarity tiers, thousands of build possibilities and several endgame systems. And he would build all of that by himself. And if you're thinking like, how the heck is he going to develop that all by himself? Well, no clue. Actually, I had the same questions back in December 2019 when I bought the game in early access just to check it out. And what I found was very much alpha state. Made sense because the game was in alpha. I made several videos about it and kept asking that same question myself. Will this game ever be released and in what state exactly? Half a year passed by, Sam released regular updates and the game started to be a bit more fleshed out. They were overall of course minor upgrades, but new game systems did get implemented. There was some more endgame, new classes, new skills, etc. Still, the game was stuck in alpha with quite a few bugs, wonky gameplay, graphics that I felt were bland and looked dated but were apparently intended for the old school look, that sort of thing. To further progress the development, Sam started a Kickstarter for only around £3,000, with him being British and all. This was July 2020, around a year ago. The funding was mainly to be able to buy assets from the Unreal Engine store. Despite pretty much no one knowing about this game, it did get some exposure. Several content creators made videos about it. I did with my minor channel, but also Vulcan did a dev interview, I Do Damage even did voiceovers in-game as a tutorial, and the devs of Last Epoch helped Sam with tips and tricks on running a successful Kickstarter. They may have even backed the project themselves, I wouldn't be surprised. And after a close finish, honestly, the Kickstarter did get funded for around £4,000. So far, so good. Sam kept working with more and more updates. I think he bought the assets he wanted and put them in game. Regardless, the game did continue with steady updates. Sam was very communicative on the Discord, always explaining the thought process behind the changes, and while I didn't really enjoy the game and told people to not buy it unless they enjoyed alphas or wanted to support Sam, the whole project had a certain charm to it. It was a true passion project with a very driven developer, and you could see the enthusiasm in all the videos that he put out. In interviews, the heart and soul he put into the game was almost tangible, and to me that really helped sell the whole project. At the same time, there was sort of a lack of realism, of course, which I did realize. I mean, I told people to not buy the game after all, because the future was very uncertain of this one, but we will get to that. It's not hard to see, however, why certain people and certain content creators thought this game had potential and charm. That charm slowly deteriorated near the start of this year, in 2021. Sam had just signed with a publisher, which seemed like good news at the time, but around February, patches stopped coming in. The Discord went pretty much silent. Since February this year, both Discord and any public channels like Twitter or Steam were completely mute. Until yesterday, where Sam announced the game was dead. You can't buy it anymore on Steam. It will not be developed further. It's game over. So what happened? Well, apparently that publisher he signed with screwed him. That's pretty much what the first part of this post is all about. They stopped paying him, didn't let him release patches for whatever reason, and it just seems he signed a pretty bad deal. And probably didn't have a lawyer look at that contract because a publisher should not have this many rights. But hey, we all make mistakes. During this time, while Sam couldn't really release patches or further develop the game, he reflected on the game, and contrary to what God saw at his creation, Sam saw it wasn't good. To put an end to the whole debacle with the publisher, Sam pretty much shut down the game. But the story doesn't end there, because the TLDR of the post reads, new keys will be given free of charge at a later date. No further details given though, like that actual date or which game we're talking about here. It's a little suspicious, you could say. Sam is also working on another game, because, you know, just trying to complete one game at the same time is too easy, clearly. So I thought maybe this other game is the game we're getting keys for. But that would be a little fishy, right? I mean, that other game is planned to get a Kickstarter, and this game already has done a Kickstarter, so how does that work exactly? You could make all sorts of wild theories about that, call it a scam, link a few random posts together and try to cause the next internet drama. Or you could just ping the developer on Discord and see what's up. I thought that was the more reasonable thing to do. Turns out, Sam is actually working on a remake, let's say, of Sanctum Breach. He told the title, but I won't spoil that one, I'll leave that up to him to disclose. But it's safe to say that somewhere in the future, not necessarily anytime soon by the way, there will be a revamped version of Sanctum Breach, built from the ground up, and it should result in a much better game. I personally feel this is very much like him, like Sam, a developer I've come to know through his posts and through his few conversations on Discord. He's extremely positive, sometimes causing his own downfall, to put it rather dramatically. He wants to continue developing and doesn't give up on his dream, no matter how realistic this dream is. And the world, and I suppose the gaming industry, needs some dreamers too, right? If you're all realistic IT architects like me, that's no fun either. We need some visionaries sticking out their necks, just as we need some people criticizing them. And then it's ultimately up to you to make a decision. Just know that I'm not trying to say something like, I told you so. So, Sanctum Breach is dead, but it will be resurrected by its creator. There's a certain beauty in that, I think. The king is dead, long live the king. And what do I think? Do I think the new Sanctum Breach, let's call it Sanctum Breach 2.0, will be a success? I honestly don't know. It's bound to be a lot better than the version I played, that's for sure, but that doesn't mean it's going to be good, let's be honest here. Creating an ARPG with a scope like this, pretty much from scratch again by just one guy, I mean, it's a stretch at the very least. We've seen single devs do beautiful things before, create truly magnificent experiences, games I've played and covered on the channel. Chronicon comes to mind, made by one guy from Sweden. Chronicon, however, has pixel art, a pretty short campaign, only a few classes, a few skills, and it still took like 5 years in early access or something like that to get the game released. Great game, but 5 years, you know? Another game, completely different genre, is Bright Memory, a FPS shooter made in Unreal Engine, which looks absolutely stunning and is amazing to play, and it's made by just one guy from China. However, it lasts just 1.5 hours and costs €5. Not sure how long he worked on those 1.5 hours, but pretty sure it wasn't just 1 year of development either. And even if it was, it's still sort of relative to the content. Making 1.5 hours of content in 1 year seems somewhat realistic at least. So what do Chronicon and Bright Memory have in common? Well, they have a clear and concise scope. They can pull off what they're doing because they keep the scope contained to a minimum, one way or another. Scope creep is a real thing across many projects, but especially in creative endeavors, and it leads to all sorts of issues. A good example of scope creep is Star Citizen. If that game ever releases, and it does what it once promised in like 2 decades from now, and I'm not even kidding about those timelines, it may be the greatest achievement in gaming history. However, it may never get there because the scope is completely out of control. Sanctum Breach will not be the greatest achievement in gaming history, clearly, but it can still be a really great achievement. However, with the current scope, any project manager or any person following game development for a while from a distance, and I've done both of these things actually, would tell you that it's probably a good idea to reduce the scope somewhat. Focus on a small first version of the game, release that into early access, and then expand. Sanctum Breach originally didn't do that. It basically built everything at once, pretty much. There was a campaign, half done, skills, half done, endgame, 15% done, loot, half done, enemies, half done, level design, half done, and then I'm being generous about those halves, honestly. But nothing was really playable. Not a single part of the game felt actually good to play because not a single component was actually finished. If you want people to support the game, apart from the hardcore supporters which will have your back anyway, regardless of what you do, you need to create something small, but appealing, and expand on that premise. Instead of offering and building content that would even be hard to deliver for 15 developers within 2 years, let alone by just one guy who can't even work full-time on the project. That's what I think. Still, both Sam and Sanctum Breach have that charm, that sort of perseverance that is contagious, and I'm not trying to bash either the dev or the game. I've always tried to be respectful of someone's dreams in that sense and even supported it by buying the early access version, despite knowing it wasn't a game that I would really play. I covered it in the past various times to hopefully spread the word a bit. I'm trying to give smaller indie games a platform as well, if I believe it might lead to something, while being honest about it at the same time. I just hoped Sam would be able to make it while being critical about the game simultaneously, and I think those things can coexist actually. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. Maybe next time he will. I would recommend some more reflection on that scope though. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Do you think the Sanctum Breach 2.0 will succeed, and how? And as for now, that's it. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Love you all. Bye bye.